What's going on, horror fanatics? I am Marcus. Welcome to our Shop 6 Times YouTube horror movie channel. In my first video of 2025, I'm going to be catching up with Scream 7, discussing the massive news of Matthew Lillard's return as Stu Macher, as well as other casting news and character updates for the film. If you are a fan of the Scream franchise or a fan of horror movie content in general, please shoot this video a like. It helps out with the YouTube algorithm a ton. And if you are a new viewer here to the channel, please shoot that subscribe button followed by the bell icon so you get all the latest content updates to the channel. Alright y'all, so before I share my thoughts and opinions on Matthew Lillard's return as Stu Macher in Scream 7, as well as the other casting news and character updates we've gotten thus far, I want to start this off with a special thank you to you, the audience, and then lead this into some special shout outs for some friends and content creators here on YouTube. So, why am I thanking you, the audience? Well, honestly, and I mean this in the most humble way, no cockiness whatsoever, but I firmly believe that the studio wasn't just listening to the diehard fan base who doesn't create content. They were listening to the diehard fan base who do create content and talk about this, and who talk about wanting to see Matthew return. Again, I humbly say that, but I will stand on business when I say I believe that. But why is that? Why is that even possible? That's possible because of you, the audience. You guys taking time out of your day to come hang out and listen to our thoughts and our opinions. You guys, whether you agreed with the Stu Macher is alive theory or not, coming into the comment section, having healthy, agreeable or disagreeable debates. You guys are what made this happen. Without you guys, I don't have a voice. None of us have a voice. So I just wanted to say thank you guys, because you guys made this happen just as much as we did. We all made this happen. Now, on to the special shout outs for some friends and content creators here in the YouTube community who have been at the forefront of Matthew's return to Scream 7, who have been at the forefront of the Stu Macher is alive theory movement. Content creators such as my brother, the conductor of the Stu train himself, craving something scary. Content creators such as the Duchess of Woodsboro, Sister Pam. Content creators such as Mike from We Watch the Movie, Destination Station, The Bearded Entertainment, and so many others who have been promoting Matthew's return to the Scream franchise for so many years now, who have been pushing it to the moon and back. The hard work paid off. And in the words of Freddie Harris, why don't we just give ourselves a nice big pat on the back? Alright y'all, so Thursday, January 30th, 2025 will forever go down in history as the day one Matthew Lillard made his return home to the Scream franchise. Matthew himself dropped the announcement via his Instagram page, sharing a video of him writing on a piece of paper, "My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me," the iconic line that he spoke in the original Scream film. A couple things to take note of in regards to the paper, for those who may have not took notice, is that it's plain white paper, no lines, and if you look close, there are multiple pieces underneath the top one. Is this a subtle clue that Stu Macher is alive and in prison? I'm an honest guy, I've been incarcerated a time or two, and that is the same exact style of paper that they give you in jail to write with and to write who you need, along with giving you multiple pieces of them for stock purposes. So though nothing is concrete in regards to if Stu is alive in jail or not at this time, this definitely caught my attention. I thought this was such a genius way to announce Matthew's return to Scream, not only because it was simple and a cool way to go about it, but because it confirms he will be returning as Stu Macher and not some random new character. Now obviously, seeing this news and the way it was announced, I was ecstatic because I instantly got the thought that we could see the version of the third Scream film that was scrapped, where we could have gotten Stu Macher back in that film, alive, in prison, running a Ghostface cult from inside who goes after Sidney and Gale. The cult of Ghostface concept is a very popular concept that fans would love to see play out on screen. Another popular theory / concept amongst fans for the Stu Macher character for Scream 7 is to adopt what Scream 5 and Scream 6 did in regards to leaving subtle Easter eggs that hint at the possibility of Stu Macher being alive as a precursor into them actually revealing that he is alive and never died back in 1996, while giving us a backstory explaining how that happened. For given the timing of Matthew's return announcement, I do think it does kind of put in jeopardy the hope that Stu Macher could be alive in Scream 7. The reason the timing of the announcement puts the idea of Stu being revealed alive at the end of Scream 7 in jeopardy, in my opinion, is because now everyone expects Stu to be involved in these new murders now that he is returning. The announcement also takes away the shock value Stu's return would have gotten had they would have kept his reveal on the hush until the movie actually released. The whole point of the subtle clues that they had set up in Scream 5 and Scream 6 was to not only keep us talking about the possibility of Stu being alive, but to keep us guessing without giving us anything concrete. Now that we have no reason to guess anymore, I just feel like making Stu alive will be predictable, and that is something the last two films struggle with mightily. The only way this can still work and be acceptable, in my opinion, is if you have Stu's accomplice or accomplices identity reveal be just as groundbreaking, shocking, and unexpected to the level of what Stu's reveal was in the original film. Pairing Stu with weak partners will not cut it. Now, we did get this post from Scream News over on X via Daniel RPK, giving us some insight on Stu Macher's role in Scream 7. As the post reads, Stu Macher, Matthew Lillard, has more than just a cameo. His presence plays a significant role in the film. Now, this is interesting because in my mind there are obviously multiple ways to where they could have Stu Macher's character's presence influence the events that's taking place in Scream 7. But the one that's standing out right now at this moment in time the most in my mind is that we could be seeing Stu Macher in a supernatural-esque type of way. That's right, we could be seeing Ghost Stu Macher in Scream 7. Not completely sold? Let me explain. Matthew Lillard's Stu Macher character isn't the only dead killer returning for Scream 7, as it was reported shortly before Matthew's return announcement that Scott Foley would also be returning. Foley portrayed Roman Bridger, the half-brother of Sidney Prescott in Scream 3, who was revealed as the original mastermind behind her mother Maureen's murder in 1995. Now, when I saw this news break, I said to myself, okay, us Stu truthers wouldn't reveal that Stu never died in the original film to begin with in order to explain his return in Scream 7 or any other Scream movie where they decided to bring the character back, because we feel his death was never definitive. You cannot do that with Roman's character because his death is definitive, as he was shot in the head by Dewey in Scream 3. So how are they planning on bringing Roman Bridger back in Scream 7? So after giving it some deep thought, I came up with 3 credible scenarios for how Roman will be utilized in Scream 7. The first would be is that they de-age Roman and we get a flashback scene between 1995 and 1996, either before Maureen's murder or in between the events of the original killing spree. The second would be is that we see Roman appear to Sidney in ghost form via hallucination, something similar to what we've seen from Billy Loomis's character in Scream 5 and Scream 6 for the Samantha Carpenter character. Sidney was seen having hallucinations of Ghostface in the theater scene in Scream 2, so we could definitely see that from her character in Scream 7, especially when you take into account the working title being scar tissue. As we know, scar tissue doesn't always have to be something physical. It can be from mental trauma, emotional trauma, so on and so forth. And the third is that they bring Roman back in a Scream 3 style nightmare sequence, the way that we saw their mother Maureen appear and utilized in Scream 3. What makes these ideas even more interesting and possible for not only Roman, but to some degree Stu as well, is that Masongooding, who is returning as Chad Meeks-Martin in Scream 7, recently spoke to Entertainment Weekly promoting his new movie Hard Eyes, along with speaking about Scream 7. And he would have this to say about Matthew Lillard and Scott Foley, while also giving a subtle clue as to what could be in store for Stu Macher and Roman Bridger's returns. Matthew Lillard's been a huge part of my understanding and love for the medium for a very long time, Gooding says, pointing to his love of the live-action Scooby-Doo and horror flick 13 Ghosts. When you consider his work in the context of the first Scream, you realize that was actually him kind of reining it in and being more grounded given the circumstances. To see where they're taking that understanding and dynamic in 7 is far different than I imagine anyone will be able to anticipate, and they will absolutely deliver. He also praises Foley as incredible and calls Scream 3 a secret pleasure of his. I cannot wait for people to see what they're cooking, so to speak, with Matthew and Scott, he adds, because it's something special. Now, the comment that stands out to me the most from this Entertainment Weekly interview with Mason Gooding is when he goes on to talk about Matthew Lillard and how he has always been a huge inspiration of his in regards to understanding media. Why I think that is important for Stu Macher's character and what we could see out of the character in Scream 7 is because if they decide to go in the direction that they are not going to reveal that Stu is alive and they're going to conclusively, definitively tell us that he is dead in Scream 7, well then the only way that this character could be present in Scream 7 is if he's much like I anticipate Roman to be, brought back in a supernatural-esque ghost form type of way. What would give the Ghost Stu Macher theory even more credibility, in my opinion, is if we get the speculated returns of both Steve Ulrich as Billy Loomis and Emma Roberts as Jill Roberts in Scream 7. If those two characters in fact return, given how they both were definitively killed off in Scream 1996 and Scream 4 respectively, I know there are some fans out there who believe that Jill could still be alive and brought back into the Scream franchise and maybe get a few movies out of her, if not just one. I am not one of them, but I'm not one to judge you because I am one who believes that Charlie Walker could actually be alive and be brought back into the Scream franchise as well. But if these two characters, if Billy Loomis and Jill Roberts do in fact return in Scream 7, then I think it's undeniable at that point that Scream 7 will be leaning heavily into having these killers return in a supernatural way, as it is the only way to explain why all of them are present in the film all at once when they are considered dead. I could see a nightmare sequence for Sidney where all of these killers are chasing her down one last time for old time's sake, and I am definitely all here for it. But they got to give us this line from Billy if they do decide to do something like this.
What's the matter, Sidney? You look like you've seen a ghost.
Now, guys, this is just a dark horse theory. Literally just popped in my brain as I was talking about everything else, and I literally had to write it down so I didn't forget about it. But what if, right, in Scream 7, as a way to make Stu Macher's presence be felt and have a significance to the story, what if in Scream 7 they give us a Silence of the Lamb-esque, Hannibal Lecter-esque type of return for Stu Macher? Now, what do I mean by that? You might ask yourself, right? Well, what I mean by that is, what if they do reveal that Stu Macher is alive? What if they do reveal that Stu Macher is in prison? But what if they also reveal that Sidney and Gale has always known about him being in prison? Which would explain why in previous films there was never no mention of Stu Macher, because they didn't feel the need to mention him because they didn't feel threatened by him anymore because he was locked up. What if, though, these new murders start happening and they start to resemble the original murders committed by Billy and Stu? What if they start to resemble the way Stu kills people, his style of killing, his brand of killing, the way that he goes and handles his business? What if it is very familiar, the way these killers kill, to how Stu kills? Or what if these killers provide direct Easter eggs and clues that connect them to Stu Macher? And Sidney and Gale, or just Sidney, could just be Sidney. Could just be Sidney. But I'd like to think Gale would want to get in that mix too. You guys know how Gale is. But what if they go out there to see Stu in prison, much like Clarice Sterling did with Hannibal Lecter, in order to get his help in terms of capturing Buffalo Bill, but also tapping into the mind of a serial killer who operates on the same level as him, basically. That's what Sidney Prescott would basically be going to Stu Macher for, is how do I tap into the mind of a serial killer who's on the level of you, especially if they resemble their style of killing and the way they're going about their business connects to you. What if Stu ends up being the Randy of Scream 7? What if he ends up providing the rules on how to survive a horror movie in Scream 7? What if? Now guys, we've also theorized about Scream 7 or any Scream movie going in a different direction in terms of ending on a cliffhanger. We've also theorized and talked about, instead of one Scream movie with Stu Macher in it, why not give us the daily double of 2 movies with Stu Macher in it? What if, towards the end of Scream 7, if they go in this Silence of the Lamb-esque type of direction for Stu Macher, what if towards the end of Scream 7, Stu Macher breaks out of prison, much like Hannibal Lecter did in Silence of the Lambs? And then, once we get the killer's reveal in Scream 7 who's committing these new murders, Sidney feels that maybe now she could be at peace once again, right? But then she gets that oh shit notification. Stu Macher's out. He's out of prison and he is amongst us. And that is your cliffhanger leading into the 8th film, which, by the way, is already speculated to be basically already in the works. What if they decide to go in this type of direction for Stu Macher as a way to make his presence significance to the storyline of Scream 7? Again, guys, this is a dark horse theory. I know it might sound like an outlier theory, but this is a theory that I just want you guys to all keep in the back of your pocket leading into the film, because I personally think the possibility may not be high, but there is a possibility that this is the type of direction they could decide to go in for Stu Macher's character as a way to basically get different from all the theories that we have for what they're going to do for the Stu Macher character. Now, before I move on to other casting news, character updates, as well as the confirmed Indiana setting for the film, I want to talk about the rumor that is floating around out there that Lynn McCree, who portrays Maureen Prescott in the Scream franchise, the mother of Sidney Prescott and Roman Bridger, is also set to make a return in Scream 7. Now, in the past, I've had the honor and privilege of interacting with Lynn through chat on Craven Something Scary's channel when he has done interviews with her, and she is truly a down-to-earth, amazing individual who deserves one last hurrah at the very least in a Scream film as Maureen Prescott. As I will always say, without Maureen's backstory to tell through her kids, there is no Scream franchise, and I will stand on business forever when I say that. So the last time we saw Maureen was via the nightmare sequence that I mentioned earlier in the video from Scream 3. So if she is going to appear in Scream 7, then you're not wrong in an assumption that we could be seeing her in an identical situation in Scream that we saw her in Scream 3 and Scream 7. Now, I know some think if she does return, we could also see a live flashback scene of her death. I definitely do think that is on the table, especially if we get the confirmation that Skeet Ulrich is returning as Billy Loomis. Then I think that possibility goes from about, I want to say 50% right now, probably to about 75-80%. However, if she does appear in Scream 7 in the same type of fashion that she appeared in Scream 3, instead of having Maureen appearing to Sidney in the vile way that she appeared to her in Scream 3, I would actually like to see a more wholesome interaction between the two characters in Scream 7, because we never got to see that in the Scream franchise before. Maybe we see Maureen come to Sidney in a dream or a hallucination, apologizing to Sidney for having to suffer for Maureen's sins all these years. Or maybe we get the type of send-off at the end of the film that I thought Scream 3 should do, when Sidney's door mysteriously opened at the end of the film, and when she turns around, she would see Maureen standing there smiling at her before the camera would cut back to Sidney doing the same thing, and then we get the credits to roll, which I felt would have been the perfect send-off for both characters, as well as a perfect send-off for Sidney Prescott's character in terms of going in another direction with the Scream franchise and moving on from the character. But regardless to how they want Maureen to appear in Scream 7, I am just thrilled at the possibility of seeing this character again in Scream 7, because there are so many possibilities on what you could do to present this character again, especially with the fact that Roman, Stu, and possibly Billy are all going to be in this film as well. Moving on to some more casting news for Scream 7, and as I mentioned earlier in the video, Masongooding will be reprising his role as Chad Meeks-Martin in this film, and he will not be coming alone, as jasminesavoybrown will also be reprising her role as Chad's twin sister, Mindy Meeks-Martin. The twins are back, but most importantly, one half of the core four from the previous two films return. Alright, so I'm not going to lie, when these announcements were made, I was pleasantly surprised for the sole fact that with the departures of Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, I didn't expect any of the core four characters to be in this film. I thought that the creative team was going to wash their hands completely with anything to do with the core four. I thought that we would get a subtle write-off for these characters, much like we got a subtle write-off of Sidney's character in Scream 6. But when you think about it from a Ghostface legacy standpoint, the Meeks-Martin twins do not need the Carpenter sisters to be in this film with them to be attacked by Ghostface. And the reason why I say that is because of them being the niece and nephew of Randy Meeks and his obvious tie-in to the Ghostface legacy of Sidney Prescott. That's how they do not need the Carpenter sisters to be around in this film, because they themselves are now always tied into the Ghostface legacy as well. And for those who are probably still upset with the fact that Melissa and Jenna are not returning for this film, who might even be a little salty that Jasmine and Mason are, and are wondering how creative is going to explain in this movie why the core four is no more and what has happened to that relationship. Well, in my opinion, it is really easy to explain, especially when you're operating on time jump rules the way it is rumored that Scream 7 is supposed to be operating on. Now, obviously, the first rumor that came out in regards to the time jump was that we were going to be picking up 5 years after the events of Scream 6. So let's just go with that for a second. Let's say there is a 5-year time jump between the events of 6 and 7. Well, that is ample time for the relationship between the twins and the Carpenter sisters to deteriorate, which would explain why they no longer have a relationship with them. For all we know, after the events of Scream 6, the twins could have started blaming the sisters for them almost being killed twice, and decided if they were going to stay alive and avoid any Ghostface interactions, they have to cut them out of their lives in order for that to happen. I will say what sucks about Jenna Ortega not returning as Tara Carpenter in Scream 7 is that now we won't see how the relationship between her and Chad would have evolved or disintegrated with our own eyes over time like we saw with Dewey and Gale. I will also add that if I was creative and I chose to mention the Carpenter sisters in this movie, even to a small extent, I'd write something along the lines that neither side between the Carpenter sisters and the twins could get past their trauma from the events of the last two films, and being around each other was a constant reminder of both near-death experiences, and that they both decided to go their separate ways because of this, and that both sisters had made up with their mother Christina and moved to London, which we know was a known work location for the unseen mother in the last two films. Having them live in London or somewhere where Ghostface can't reach them during these events is an easy pivot out of saying they moved back to Woodsboro, which would present problems with fans if in fact Scream 7 does end up back in Woodsboro at some point, because then the big talking point would be the whereabouts of the Carpenter sisters. Now, last Saturday, Scream News over on X will go on to share this post with the caption, "Let's meet our new cast members of Scream 7. At the top of the list is Tatum, Sidney's daughter. Now, I think this is safe to assume that this is Sidney's eldest daughter that has been heavily rumored leading into this film as a main character alongside Sidney in Scream 7. Her character is going to be portrayed by Isabel May. Ben is Tatum's boyfriend, who is portrayed by Sam Reckner. Chloe, who is portrayed by Celeste O'Connor, will be the heartbreaker of the friend group, aka the slutty roommate, a horror movie classic. Anna Camp will be portraying the role of Jessica, Sidney's neighbor and friend, who is also the mother to Lucas. Asha German will be portraying Lucas, Tatum's hot but creepy neighbor with a Ted Bundy vibe. McKennagrace will be portraying the role of Hannah. Tatum's rich friend and queen bee of the friend group. Mark Consuelos is portraying the role of Robbie, a new reporter who bothers Galeweathers while she is in town. And then we have Mark, Sidney Prescott's husband. Okay, so now I'm going to touch on a few of these new cast members in Scream 7, and I'm going to work my way from the bottom of the list to the top. The first character that I want to touch on is Mark Evans. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a Joel in the Scream franchise, but maybe not the Joel that you might have been hoping for, as Joel McHale is portraying the role of Mark Evans, the husband of Sidney Prescott. You heard that correctly, but just in case you didn't, I'll repeat myself. Mark Evans is the husband of Sidney Prescott, not Mark Kincaid. Now, this is no disrespect by any means necessary to Joel McHale. I actually like Joel McHale a lot. I actually think he's absolutely hilarious, especially in some of the darker comedy movies that I've seen him in, specifically in Ted. But I think I'm speaking for the entire fan base when I say
this right here is bullshit.
It is bullshit, Cody. It is bullshit indeed. But to be fair to Spyglass, they have bounced back quite nicely from the Melissa Barrera firing and the backlash that came with that. Now, I know there are some people out there that are still saying they're going to boycott Scream 7, they're not going to watch it, so on and so forth. And hey, if that's how you feel and that's what you want to do, go for it. I respect your opinion. You're not going to get any judgment from me. However, the reason why I feel like we should give credit where credit is due to Spyglass is because, for the most part, they have given us what we wanted, the majority of the fan base anyway, in regards to a fan servicey type of Scream movie. A bunch of legacy characters that hold a lot of weight to the legacy of Scream. Stu Macher, possibly Jill Roberts, possibly Billy Loomis, Roman Bridger, Galeweathers, Sidney Prescott, Maureen Prescott, especially if, they do bring her back. All of those characters that I just mentioned all hold a greater importance to the legacy of Scream over one Mark Kincaid. Put it in this way, right? Look at it like this. If you had to choose between Roman, Stu, Billy, Jill, Sidney, Maureen, Gale, and Mark Kincaid, who would you be willing to sacrifice out of all those characters to not be in this film? It would most likely be Mark Kincaid. Now, what I do think is going to be missing in regards to Sidney's dynamic with her significant other, with this new Mark, is the dynamic that she had with Mark Kincaid in Scream 3. And the reason why I say that is because they had such a unique dynamic, because in my opinion, they were literally the same type of person, just different geniality. Both of them were haunted human beings by the violence that they saw in their everyday life. So I feel like that dynamic was so unique, and that was something that I wanted to see further expanded upon in Scream 7. Now, obviously, it wasn't like they wasn't trying to get Patrick Dempsey to return in Scream 7. We know for a while that they were in talks. But what it boils down to, in my opinion, is two things. Patrick obviously probably had other obligations, but more importantly, the almighty peso. When you got stars like Matthew Lillard, Neve Campbell, Courtneycox, so on and so forth, when you got all these stars coming into this film and you potentially got even more stars, you guys already know the studio is not going to go above their budget if they don't have to. And that's just what it boils down to for the Mark Kincaid character. I personally believe that they looked at the landscape and said, okay, we want this legacy character back, we want this legacy character back, we want this legacy character back. Which legacy character or other legacy characters are we willing to expend in order to spend the money on these legacy characters coming back? That's what happened with the Mark Kincaid situation. and it is a bummer, but hey, all we can hope for is that we're pleasantly surprised by the Mark Evans character and the performance that Joel McHale is going to be putting forth in Scream 7. The next character that I will touch on is Robbie Rivers. Robbie is a reporter who hosts a daytime television show titled Pine Grove with Robbie Rivers. Robbie is said to be a rival to Galeweathers, and there will be conflict between the two. Now, when I saw the casting of Mark Consuelos, I figured this would be the type of role that he would be playing, considering that he is a legit daytime TV personality. It is going to be interesting to see the dynamic between Robbie's character and Gail's character, to see what this rivalry with Gail is over. Is it just professional? Is it personal? Is Robbie someone who is out to expose Gail as being the reason Ghostface murders kept happening for so many years because of her books, while she profited off of each tragedy? Maybe a good reporter versus bad reporter scenario? All of these are viable questions to ask. I will say this, and I understand this take I'm about to make may be way too early to call, but I personally can't help but think while reading into this that with all the animosity the two characters are said to have for one another, that it could potentially lead to a new romance for Gail if both characters were to survive Scream 7. I'm just saying, sometimes in life, dislike can be hidden admiration within the core of the soul. I can't wait to see the dynamic between these two play out on screen. I have a feeling the dialogue between these two is going to be top tier. As I mentioned earlier, McKennagrace will be portraying the role of Hannah in Scream 7, Tatum's rich friend who is looked at as the queen bee of the friend group. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, Grace was not only originally rumored to be cast as Sidney Prescott's eldest daughter, but the original plan was that Sidney's daughter's name would be named Hannah as well. Obviously, they shook some things up, as Tatum is now Sidney's daughter's name, with Isabel May portraying the role. Now, though we don't have much info on Hannah, I do want to point out that I believe this character is a nod to the Brooke Maddox character from the first 2 seasons of Scream the TV show. Maddox's character in the show is literally how Hannah's character is being described in this mini bio, and I think this is a really cool way to show some love and reference to the TV show and their characters. Now, there's clearly not much info on Celeste O'Connor's character in Chloe, as the mini bio only states that she is an HBK. But when it comes to the next 2 characters in Jessica and Lucas, portrayed by Anna Camp and Asa German, I find that these 2 may be the most interesting characters out of the entire bunch. The reason I find these 2 very interesting is because for months there has been this rumor/theory that Leslie Macher, the sister of Stu Macher, who was first mentioned in Scream 5, could be introduced in Scream 7 and revealed as one of the killers in the film, who could be taking on an alias of a different name, who happens to be a neighbor and friend of Sidney Prescott. Not only does Jessica's bio match the rumor/theory for Leslie Macher, but Jessica's son Lucas, who is said to display Ted Bundy type of vibes, is damn near a spitting image of a younger Stu Macher. So if the idea is to reveal that Stu's family are behind the murders in honor of his name, I think that these 2 are the ones who would most likely be revealed as Leslie Macher, and Lucas, if that would be his real name, could be revealed as Stu Macher's youngest nephew, maybe. I only say that because Stu's other nephew from Leslie, Vince, was killed back in Woodsboro in Scream 5, and there is definitely a possibility that Leslie has more than one offspring. And last but certainly not least, we have Sidney's daughter Tatum and her boyfriend Ben. Now, obviously, Sidney's daughter's character name is an homage to her best friend and sister of Dewey Riley, Tatum Riley, who was portrayed by Rose McGowan in the original film. I think this was a fantastic idea to have Sidney name her eldest daughter after Tatum Riley, as it's a great way to honor that character in a more fitting way than what we saw the character honored in Scream 5, in my opinion. But it is worth mentioning that in the original film, Tatum Riley was murdered in Stu Macher's garage. Could the character's name be a foreshadowing of her fate in Scream 7? It seems this was done intentionally to make us theorize the possibility of that happening. As for Ben, well, I think it is fairly obvious they are setting him up to be a massive red herring in Scream 7, because if you go by what happened in the original Scream film, the Tatum character's boyfriend turned out to be one half of the killers in Stu Macher, who was the one who subsequently killed her in his garage. Again, possible foreshadowing done intentionally to make us theorize if history will repeat itself, in my opinion. Like I had mentioned earlier in the video, Scream 7 is set to take place in a town called Pine Grove in the state of Indiana, as you can see by the set photos shared by Scream News over on X. I remember the thought based on rumors and scrap dialogue from Scream 6 that the 7th film would be set to follow Sidney and her family in Seattle, Washington, but that was clearly not right. I'm interested to see how much Scream 7's events take place in Pine Grove because I believe we will be taking a trip back to Woodsboro at some point in the movie, not just because of Stu Macher returning, but because I personally cannot see why Chad and Mindy would live anywhere close to Sidney when you consider the fact that they had no interaction with her in Screams 5 and 6. The only reason they would live close to Sidney is because of their interactions with Galeweathers in Scream 6, and it's been confirmed that Gale is in town visiting Sidney, meaning she doesn't live near Sidney either. I think something is going to happen in Pine Grove that is going to lead Sidney, Tatum, Gale, and whoever else back to Woodsboro, where we then get reintroduced to the Meeks-Martin twins there. It's already bad Mark Kincaid will not be in this Ultimate Scream Legacy sequel. It would be downright blasphemy if they don't return to Woodsboro in Scream 7. It would not feel like a true Legacy sequel without it. That being said, you guys, I am super enthusiastic for Scream 7. I cannot wait for February 2026. This next year is going to be insane. I am super happy for Matthew Lillard. He deserves it. This guy has been wanting to come back to the Scream franchise for so long. Met him at a couple conventions. Talked to him about craving something scary, as well as my theory videos and how we would want to see Stu Macher return. And I remember he said something to me at one of the conventions about Stu Macher returning. And he said to me, you guys keep basically pushing the good word. You fans keep pushing for it to happen, and hopefully it will happen. Well, damn it, in the 11th hour, in the 12th round of a knockdown, drag-out, heavyweight fucking fight, we pulled this shit out, y'all. Stu Macher is fucking back. He's home, and it feels so damn good to say that he is home, where he rightfully belongs in the Scream franchise, even if it is for one more movie. Now, I'm also happy at the fact that Scott Foley is returning for Scream 7. Did not see that coming at all. Definitely a shocker. I'm happy that we got the Meeks-Martin twins back in this movie. I never felt that Jasmine and Mason should be punished for whatever debacle that was going on between the studio, Melissa, and Jenna. I feel like Scream 7, even leading into this movie right now, we are a whole year out. As of right now, I feel like Scream 7 has this wave of unpredictability that we have not gotten since Scream 4, since the reveal of Jill Roberts in that movie. As you guys are all well aware, we have talked about it many times here on this channel and on other channels. When Scream 5 and Scream 6 was being released respectively, even leading into those movies, from theory breakdown standpoints, talking about it here on YouTube, going through the trailers, breaking down the Easter eggs, for both of those movies, it was really easy to predict where the story was going and who the killers were going to be. As well, the killers were fairly underwhelming in the last two movies. So basically what I'm saying is that Scream 7, in my opinion, has this wave of unpredictability surrounding it in regards to all these dead killers coming back. How will they be utilized? How will this impact Sidney Prescott and the story? So on and so forth. Like, there are so many avenues that they could take. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, I did not expect this. Like, who would have ever expected that you would be theorizing about a possible Ghost Stu Macher Scream movie? I know I did not foresee that coming, but given the subtle little clues that I mentioned earlier, I definitely do think it's a possibility. And even if you're not down for that type of Stu Macher Scream movie or that type of Scream movie in general, you have to admire the fact that it seems like we are going to be getting different in this film compared to previous Scream movies. And that is another thing we talked about as a fan base, you know, as Scream fans, is getting different, breaking new ground, trying new things. And as of right now, it seems like Scream 7 is going to be trying a whole bunch of new things. And I am definitely on board for it. I want Scream 7 to be the most unpredictable Scream movie that we have gotten, not just since Scream 4, but possibly to rival the original's unpredictability. Guys, I think it's possible. Hopefully they keep pushing the right buttons, not just from a character and an actor portrayal standpoint, but also from a storyline standpoint and a killer reveal standpoint as well. I'm ready to run through a damn wall. This movie needs to hurry up and come out. But okay, everyone, that is it for the Scream 7 update video. Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on everything that I talked about here in the video in regards to Scream 7. What are your thoughts on Matthew Lillard's return as Stu Macher? Are you excited? Are you disappointed? Are you in the middle? Same goes for Scott Foley. How do you feel about Roman Bridger making a return for Scream 7? How do you think Stu Macher and Roman Bridger will be utilized in Scream 7? Would you like to see other dead killers, such as Jill Roberts and Billy Loomis, make a return? Would you like to see Maureen Prescott make another rise from the dead, maybe in a dream sequence or whatever type of scenario they would want to bring her back in? As well as let me know you guys' thoughts on all the new characters in Scream 7, who will be a killer, who will be a survivor, and who will be an innocent victim. Once again, I am Marcus, and this is I Shot Him 6 Times YouTube Horror Movie channel. Please be sure to follow me on all my social media platforms. Thank you all for watching.